Welcome back to another episode of the GT185 Adventurer. So I'm noticing on a lot of people's videos, because I'm building a pond in the backyard, and I'm watching all the videos on pond building, and you know, this is what you see. And let's take a look over here. Yeah, and over there. And so I'm going to try to go slower. As far as the filming goes, I'm not going to talk slower, but so anyway, a lot has happened in the waiting period here for parts. So what we have had come in is the rear tire, which is going to get me closer to this being a roller. And I got to get it to a roller before I can put the engine in. So another thing that happened is the Caswell plating solutions that I needed to replace in my plating system evidently never got delivered. They said it's delivered, but they didn't deliver it, because I've got cameras and I can see that that truck never came to our door. So I'm going to have to battle that on my own. And there's the frame again, but we did get these beautiful Chinese blinkers. And I mean, they really are really good replicas. This is off of a Yamaha R5 that, by the way, is gonna go on to Bring a Trailer. I'm going to auction that off at Bring a Trailer. I was going to go to Meacham, but with the virus and the cost, I actually live in Nevada, but it's still, you know, you figure the hotel room and everything for 2 or 3 nights, and yeah, it just starts adding up. And I've been to Vegas 100 times. So we are getting ready to start with this side cover. And getting this off was easy. I did tear, the gasket came off in 2 parts. And so with that, I could repair it, put it back on, but I found a set of gaskets. They come in 2 for some reason, and that's coming off of eBay. Everything looks good inside. We're going to polish this side cover. And I'm also going to replace the seal in the Kickstarter. So off we go on another segment of the Adventurer. So this is how I clean up my surface here for the new gasket. I've got this handy Tusk kit. It's got 3 different scrapers in it. It works pretty good. But you get it about this far, you're always got these little, and you keep scraping and keep scraping, and then you get more looking like this, where you still have a little bit of gasket material. So this is like a Scotch-Brite, or I guess you'd call it a Scotch-Brite. But you don't want to grind too much, because you don't want to disform, because you can create a valley or 2 in here. But to get that last bit off, it's so much easier. There you go. It shines it up really nice. Just don't want to bear down on any one area too much, but it'll come out looking beautiful. Now if you notice, the rotation is going to throw stuff that way. So I throw stuff out away from the inside. Now I'm going to wash the inside, in the parts washer anyway. But the least amount of crap that you get in there, the better. Now on the motor, I won't use this on the motor side, but the motor side luckily has only just a small piece of the gasket. So I'm gonna just be able to just clean up the surface on the motor and then work on that one little square, maybe 3 inches of gasket that's sitting on the motor with a scraper. But this just gets you a really good seal and fit for the new gasket. And there it is, all cleaned up, ready for the parts washer. Gonna pull this seal, and then I'm gonna polish this whole thing, and you know how that goes. It's early in the morning, but we got something in from Thailand. Let's see what they look like. Got the original Suzuki stickers on it. Oh boy. Oh boy, look at that. Oh, nice. Oh, these are going to look great. That's just so cool. So, the cost of chrome plating, given the condition of these, which are brand new, when you compare the cost of plating the old ones to these, the price of these were $117 for both, and the price of plating was $170 plus shipping. This is almost half price of having them plated. So, you know, you just have to take a good close look at, you know, what your options are. This was definitely a great option. All right, we've got the chrome back. The biggest piece is the headlight bezel here. And it looks beautiful. It just looks gorgeous. And the headlight ring. Nice. And a few other pieces here that I couldn't find, new OEM and no new old stock. Just a couple of rings around the forks and so forth. And then there's a ring goes around the inner headlight ring. And this piece was the part that I really was anticipating the most. I need this to just shine because it sits right on top of the head. And it's just right there for you to see. The minute you see the bike, you're going to see that piece. I want to know how in the world people got this stuff back together without video, without parts, fishes, or diagrams, you know, online. Because to get this right, with the gasket, the ring, which is different from this ring, and keep it all in order. There's a left and a right. This has a left and a right. But there it is. Sure looks beautiful, doesn't it? All new chrome, polished leg. Okay, so we're getting the forks put on. This top bolt gets torqued to 25 is the minimum, and that's what I want to keep it at. So 25, that's probably 28 right there. The lower pinch bolts 18 to 25, and the upper pinch bolts are 14 to 22. That's the torque. So the forks are now on. Now let's move on to the wheel. So we have our beautiful wheel, but the disc needs to be cleaned up. It's all cleaned up and dried off. It looks like this is natural back here, that it was never painted. But the front definitely is black. So I'm going to tape this off, but first I've got to wipe it down with lacquer thinner, and then we're going to give it a little bit of paint, and I'll decide what I want to do on the back. I find that I need to use the small first, then go a little bit bigger, and then just tape off. Now, you know, I could probably just spray this with maybe just the smaller ring, and then just take lacquer thinner and take off any overspray. But I was there doing it. In the back, I decided I'm going to clear it. I want to clear it because I want to keep it from rusting. So let's get those two painted. There it is, painted. I used that paint, and it really looks nice. And the clear, I think, is a really nice touch too. So ready to put it together. And there it is, all installed. Looking nice. Now I'm going to need to rebuild this. Don't need to rebuild it, but I'm just going to clean it up and disassemble it, lube it, and put it back together. I pulled it apart, but I'm only getting it about halfway apart. It's turning freely though, and there's really no breakdown of this. I'm sure this is a seal that's in there, but I don't think I'd ever find that seal again. So that's about as far as I'm going to get. Everything works, just I like to pull it apart if I can. But by lubing all up in here, it's made a big difference in how it spins. So I'll get this back together. So the axle slides through the speedometer gear. Inside, it's all lubed up real nice. That all slides in there. Just nice. And you can feel it pop in. There it is out. You just turn it, and it pops in, and it's locked in the gear. Up the bearing. You got the brand new looking replated bushing. Another brand new plated bushing. So I've done all this prior. These are all cleaned. Looking nice. Castle nut, washer. These are all replated, but there is, just so you know, you see how there's got a kind of a beveled edge on one side? There, it's flat on the other. So there is a one side. There's definitely a side to each one of these bolts or nuts. So you want to just make sure that you put the flat side against the washer. You know, so let's put this wheel together and torque it. And there it is with the forks raised up and just sitting on the axle. So now, got to refresh my memory on how to mount that wheel, which I'm pretty sure is, you clamp one side, I believe it's this side, and then tighten this side to torque, and then clamp this down. But I'm gonna look it up. But doesn't that look beautiful? Just looking all nice and new. All right, we're ready for the rear wheel. We're gonna try and get this to a roller state. And the problem with, you know, it's just the way it is. When you make things look really nice, you know, with new spokes and polishing, then an actual piece that really isn't too bad, it just doesn't look good at all. So this sprocket is in excellent condition. probably reflecting maybe the mileage on it, I'm not sure. But so we've got to pull this all apart, and I don't know what I'm going to do with this sprocket yet. I might plate it, or I might get a new one, so I'm just gonna have to see on that. But this was painted silver, so that's going to be pretty easy. I'm just going to sand that up and I'm going to paint it silver. So I decided that I wasn't going to wait. I don't like to wait for a sprocket to come. Plus it was about 40-50 bucks. So I'm just going to try to plate this. You know, I've had trouble plating. I've got new pickle juice, which is this juice in here. But I got the pH right again, and it's all about the power. I'm starting to measure the surface area, and that's helped a lot. But for this one, I had it coming in at like 9 amps, and this little power supply only goes to 5.2 amps. And that was doing too much, I thought. And so I dropped it down to 4.7, and it looks like it's really plating well. Who knows, I might just get this thing plated, and that will put me back to putting this back together. So let's see how it comes out. We've got it plated, and I think it's going to come out looking just fine. Now the hub. All right, there it is. There it is. It's not perfect, but for me, it's not perfect. It'll be just beautiful. And once the chain, I had to take some of the plating off right in here, if you can see it, because it started flaking again. I've got the power wrong, or I'm doing something wrong. So anyway, it's beautiful. It's going on. Here's my little tire mounting station. Got the K&L. It's just the basic stand, but it sure makes life easy. And then I've got a little rack with all the tire irons and leftover valve stems and covers from previous jobs, things like that. And you always need a little bit of dish soap and water in a spray bottle. Makes life easy. So what I've got is a new strip, a rubber strip, a band, I guess, and then a brand new tube and brand new tire. So let's get this on. I'm getting the pieces together to put the rear wheel on. I did a little polishing on this. This was plated before. And some of the bolts need to be plated. Some of them in here you can see are all rusty. But let me tell you what you need to have if you're going to do these, even if you're going to do one of them. If you're going to restore one motorcycle, you need to go to garage sales and get yourself as many white terry cloth towels, major large towels, hand towels, whatever you can get. Just get whatever you can get. And these are my sacrificial t-shirts. So let's just say you have a blowout and there's a quart of oil on the floor because you forgot to put the drain plug in. You're not wasting these or paper towels or whatever. Other than throwing these t-shirts away, just keep them. And I've got a couple of sets of bolts here going, so we should be able to put that rear wheel on soon. All right, the only thing left to do so I can get this to where I can pull it off the stand if I want is the handlebars. I got the rear wheel on. We got the front wheel on. So let's find those handlebars, clean them up, and install them. There it is in roller condition. Now we need to work on the motor so we can get that in. We're going to do everything before we put it in. And we're first going to tackle this side cover here. So let's get the gasket scraped off and make sure everything's before and after. Now goes the Kickstarter seal. So I'm going to put just a little bit of grease, kind of help it go. Not a big deal. They just pop in. Not sure if I really even need the socket, but I use it anyway, just to kind of give it even. It's almost halfway in. And that's about there. There it is. Nothing to it. I use this little 3-piece scraper set. I mean, just any scraper. I'm probably going to put a towel underneath here as I scrape. There's not a lot on here. In fact, I think I need more of a lacquer thinner than anything. That's probably original gunk. But there really doesn't seem to be anything on the surface. And what I'm going to do is put a little grease on the engine surface so that the next guy comes in here won't have to scrape the gasket. So I've scraped everything I can scrape. It wasn't much. I'm taking some lacquer thinner and just going over the surface a little here, just to get it a little cleaner. And you want to make sure you got your two dowels, your alignment dowels in here. There's one there and there's one back here. It's always a good idea to test fit. You never know, they could sometimes send you a gasket that isn't the right one. So on the back of this gasket, I'm just going to take some grease. Just put a thin coat. Very thin coat. So it was brought to my attention that I refer to Shingletown as if they were a bunch of hicks. Well, actually, a good friend of mine lives in Shingletown. And he and I talk all the time. So I just poke a little fun at him. I've never asked him if he takes offense, because I actually am hitting him so hard. I'm hitting him harder than Rush Limbaugh hits Rio Linda. I mean, people in Rio Linda compared to Shingletown are geniuses. All right, so let's put this on. Dowels, put them over the dowels. And there we have it. So one side's greased, the other one will stick to the outside cover. And we're ready to put the cover on. And again, I'm going to test fit this, but I'm going to put a little grease on this seal and a little on this shaft. And I probably put a little too much, maybe, it doesn't matter. But that'll help it slide over slide into the seal. Just like so. Careful, careful. Oh, it makes that sound when it just hits on the whole surface there. Now this is one of those sacrificial shirts, t-shirts. When this was laying flat without this block holding it up, it laid down a lot of oil. I just threw that down there and cleaned it up. I can throw it away. I'm going to replate this cover that goes over the clutch because I've got to renew the cable. Cable's in good condition, but I've got to get it looking better than it is. So I'm going to go ahead and plate this, and I think that'll really kind of cap off the bottom of the motor. This bike really hasn't seen a lot of use. I mean, you can look at this cable. Now, granted, I have completely detailed every part of it, but I mean, it's straight and not a fray or a weird bend or anything. And it really looks nice. Got a little go-go juice on it. Cleaned up the ends. It's ready to go back on. I also wanted to show you that I've got the plating back. The plating came back. I was struggling for so long with the plating, but now we're talking gorgeous. And then I've got the gold, or the anodized. I used to call it gold anodized, but it's not. That's for like aluminum. This is actually a chromate. But this was originally the gold, and all this other is the regular zinc plating with the blue chromate. So I'm excited because for the last 2 months I've been struggling with this plating, and it was working perfectly. So what it was most likely the pickling juice or the pickling bath. And it could have been my plates were just about gone and there was nothing left to them other than maybe like a corroded little bit left. So the new plates and the new pickle bath, I think was what they call that. I even did a new, complete new degreaser. And I also am now really trying to measure surface area and adjust amperage. So what you do is there's an actual surface area calculator, and for the last ones I plated, the current was 3.899. Basically it was 4.0 is what I calculated once I did all the measurements of the parts, and then you multiply that by 0.14 to get your amps, and that's the lower section there. The voltage automatically adjusts, so all you're doing is using this knob here to adjust your amps. But boy, what a difference. They're really coming out nice. And this is the one that I just plated. Now it's not quite dry, so it's actually going to look nicer when it's done, but this is that bottom cover by the clutch. And that's just going to make the bottom of the motor just shine. Here is the surface area calculator page at Coswell, and it goes through
you know, your various pieces that you might have. Basically a circle, a square, a triangle. Now, I am cheating a little. I'm measuring all the bolts. But for instance, this tube, I worked on this tube to get the calculation for these and these little shims that are on the battery box. And that worked out well. But there's some things you just have to kind of use your best judgment, like that cover I just measured like you would measure carpet, you know, just one square, and then add it all together, and then times it times 2 because you're plating both sides. But the nut, this nut calculation or bolt calculation, it works very well too. So, you know, you just have a bunch of notes where you're doing your square inches. And by the way, use this section of this is the inches in decimals. And you can see there's a 0.1. And then when you get up to 1 inch, it'll be 1 inch. And that's how I've been doing it. So for instance, this must have been a bolt. Using the calculator on the web page there, I got 0.63 of an inch for each bolt times 4 bolts. And this was the cover that I just did, that I showed you. And then I measured the smaller area, which is somewhat square, and then the larger area, and I came up with a total of 29 square inches between the bolts and the cover, and adjusted by taking the 29 and multiplying it by 0.14 amps, and I came up with like 4.1, and I reduced it down. I'm just trying to run on the short, or the, you know, a little bit less than what I'm coming up with. It seems to be plating really well that way. So enough of that. Let's get this clutch cover and clutch back on the bottom so we can get the motor mounted. And now, doesn't that look nice? Just kind of dresses it up. So what I thought I'd do is I thought I would do one complete example of the zinc or copycat. It's basically zinc plating with the chromate. So what you do, this is this shim that goes right in here. And it, you know, it looked ugly, right? So what you do, pull it out, and then take it to the wire wheel and get it as shiny as you can with the wire wheel. Now the inside is still going to have some grunge and plating on it. So I'm going to get this completely wire wheeled, and then we'll move to the next step. And if you don't want to watch this segment, just fast forward, you know, because this, I'm going to go through the whole process. It's not going to take that long, but so first, wire wheel or bead blast, whatever you want to do, till you get a shiny metal. And what this is going to be, I believe this is going to be a tube on that calculator. I have this vat of diluted uric acid. So that's it right there. Just everyday muriatic acid. And I have to say this is about maybe a 10% solution. It's a little heavier than the normal that Caswell has for your regular acid etching for the plating process. And I use this occasionally when I think there's maybe something inside the tube, inside there. I just don't, I want to take the extra time, and I don't want to put a bunch of garbage in all my baths, stuff breaking off, pieces, oil. So it's been in there about 10 minutes. I'm going to pull it out. And now it just goes in the rinse, the regular acid rinse that I use for plating. And that's rinsed off. So I want to stress that the acid bath that I put this shim in is totally optional. I hardly ever use it. All I do is I wire wheel it till it's shiny, but putting it in that acid and then wire wheeling it again, because it instantly got surface rust overnight, really kind of shined it up. So just who knows, maybe I stumbled on something. So we're going to put it in the bath of degreaser, and we're going to sit it in here for 20 minutes. I'm just bending over the little wires so it's sitting in the middle of the fluid and not sitting on the bottom. We're going to set that for all right, it's been 20 minutes. We're at 0. Give it a little wash there. And then into the rinse. I'm doing this just quickly to show you. Into that's the rinse for the degreaser. Then give it 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 seconds in the acid. And that's a different acid. That's just a 5% solution. And then we rinse it in the acid twice. And lay our crossbar across. And I'm going to set this down. And you just want to have it so it's kind of submerged in the middle. It hits the bottom. I don't think I've had an issue with it hitting the bottom when it sits on the bottom. Okay, and then we're going to turn on our machine. And what did I forget? I forgot to measure it for amperage. So let's do that now. So I'm going to find the tube. Here it is right here, tube. So the radius, what you do is you measure it's 0.5, so half an inch, 0.54, so that'd be 2.5, 2.6, 2.7, 2.7 for our radius. And I'm going to write these measurements down real quick. 2.7 radius. The height. Is 2.9. And I'm going to get this back into the degreaser because it's already starting to surface rust. So the radius, when you measure the total distance of the tube, how wide that tube is, it shows you up here how to get a radius. That's the R factor, and here is the diameter. So you get the diameter. The diameter is half, or the radius is half of the diameter. So when you come here, and again, they show it here, the diameter of a bolt, the radius is half of the diameter. So whatever that is, whatever factor that is they're using. So we're going to go to the tube again. And the tube, I had a 5.2, so 0.52, which was half an inch basically, plus 2. So cut that in half, and that's 2.5 plus 1, 2.6. So let's just say 2.6 for the radius, which is, excuse me, I keep saying 2.6, but it's 0.26, and I get this messed up a lot. And then the height was 2.9, so that was 2.9 inches long. And then if we calculate, hit the calculate button, and also it asks if you want to plate the inside, and we do. I mean, it will. You're going to plate it. And there's no way you can't unless you fill it with something. I don't know how that would work. So the answer is 9.47 inches of area. So there's 9 inches basically of area. Then you multiply that, 9.47 times the 0.14, and you'll get your amperage. So 9.47 times 0.14 equals 1.32. So 1.32 is the amperage. And I've been going a little less than that, so I'm probably going to go 1.15, because part of my problem was over cooking it with too much amperage. So let's get it into the pickle bath and at 1.5 amps for 20 minutes. We've got it on. There's a button here so you can turn the current on or off, or if you push this button in, you'll get the current. And we were saying we wanted 1.15. So let's go to 1.2 is good. Now let's just hit the current button. So now we've got basically 2 amps going to it. And there it is inside. And it looks a little too strong to me. I don't know. I'm not sure. So I don't see as much. I put the amperage down to like 8.8. And I don't see it foaming as much. It was definitely foaming before down in the pickle juice. So it is plating. Let's set our timer for, I'm going to say about 18 minutes. The thing about this is you can plate nuts and bolts in about 10 minutes, as long as you're not plating 100 of them. And so something like this, you just kind of use your best judgment. It might take 18 minutes. It probably could be done in maybe 15 or even 12. But as you can see, it's already starting to plate. On the wires, you can see a discoloring of the wire. So let's just put it down in there and let's just watch it. And every piece is totally different, so you just kind of play with it. But we'll pull it out of here in 20 minutes. All right, the timer went off. So we'll go over here, kill the power, and it looks a little darker than normal, which is good. I'm trying to get some of the brightener out of it. I think, you play with that a little bit. I'd like them a little duller. So let's rinse it. And the acid, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. Rinse that. And you can see it's brighter. Now that is probably a cad or zinc look. But we're going to go ahead and give it the blue chromate. And 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, 6,000, 7,000, 8,000, 9,000, 10,000, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Now look at the difference. And give it a little. Oh yeah. Oh, we're looking good. I want it to look like it would come out of the box from the Suzuki parts. If you were to go to the parts counter and say, give me a shim for a GT185 bottom motor mount,
they'd open the box and that's what they'd bring out. And there it is in all its beauty. So that's how you do each and every part. Now let's put it on here, slide it in. Look how nice it looks against this nice plated clutch cover. We'll put this rubber grommet in and we'll be ready to perhaps put the motor in the frame. Before we can put the engine in, I'm going to put this alternator cover on. Doesn't it just look so nice with brand new screws and beautiful polishing? Oh my. Oh my. Alright, it's back on the rack. And I just do a little tape and put a towel underneath just to kind of protect. So I'm doing this myself. So alright, it's just laid in there. Now I'm going to have to move it around and get the holes to line up and take the tape off and the towel out. Alright, it's in. I've got the bolts just loose. I wanted to remind you that the Suzuki bolts, the one that, let me show you, I can find right here. I'll show you real quick. You see the S on that? The Suzuki bolts, they have one-way nuts. And I don't know if you can make it out here, but one's got kind of a nice rounded head on one side, and then the other side is flat, if not even a little concave. So the smooth rounded edge goes outside. And I'm sure you would notice that, but it's amazing how many people don't realize that these nuts go on one way. So there it is. Now we're going to take the time to torque and set that motor in. And the torque settings in the manual, and we'll do that next. All right, I've heard if you don't go over 10 seconds with music on your video that it won't get flagged, but this is total music for the shop. Nirvana. Unfortunately, I had to kill the music so that I don't get flagged. Anyhow, so the kickstand and foot pegs are on, and they're looking sharp. I cleaned up the brake lever, and I'm assembling the piece, the arm, before I install this. It sure is nice to have nice plated stuff to put back together. You know, it really makes all the difference in the world. Alright, we're going to start the rear brakes. I'm going to put the little O-ring. There's a little rubber O-ring that I finally found it. And that goes right in there behind the arm. And we lube up that shaft. And we're going to put a washer and a cotter pin on. The brake lever is installed and adjusted. Well, Chico says that it is time to end this segment. So what do you think, Chico? Yeah, he's running off to his parts manager's office. So we're at the end of this segment, and we just got it to a roller situation here. But those people in Shingletown, you know, their attention span is very short, so I can't run too long on a segment without getting some hate mail from Joe out there. You know, he tells me at his little meetings with One-Eyed Jerry
that they think I run too long and that they can't sit at a computer that long. So I'm cutting it here, and we'll pick it back up. We're going to put on the wiring harness, get some of the electrical run. I have a chain ordered, but then I'll probably work on the taillight. I've got to do something with these shocks. I'm probably just going to have to clean them up because there are none available. They are like an unobtainium. So until the next video, we will see you.